Okay, we continue with the Heart Sutra commentary. How many of you are here for the first time? Okay, welcome. You've been here before. Yeah. Okay. Same face, different space. Okay. We have spoke about the Heart Sutra for some time. And we've covered the practice of Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, contemplation of hearing. We spoke about Prajnaparamita, 5 skandhas, suffering, nature of emptiness, and then and its relationship with form. And then we spoke about 5 skandhas in detail, and the 18 realms, 6 sense faculties, 6 sense objects, corresponding 6 cognitive awarenesses, kind of tripartite relationship between body, mind, and the external environment. And then we spoke about the 12 link chains of dependent origination. We covered quite a bit. Today we talk about Four Noble Truths. So those of you who are here for the first time, and also who are hasn't been following the Heart Sutra, the talks are online, so you can kind of catch up if you wish. Not necessary. Yeah, too much to cover. The Four Noble Truths. How many of you have never heard of the Four Noble Truths? Okay, 1. So this refers to Buddhist analysis of the world as we know it. And the way out of the predicament that we find ourselves, the possibility of freedom. The Four Noble Truths are suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path. But the Heart Sutra says there is no Four Noble Truths. Now, those of you who've been following the Heart Sutra series of talks, you would know that the Heart Sutra belongs to the Prajnaparamita genre of teachings, literature. And this is a Mahayana movement that critiques early phenomenological, materialist understanding of the world. Instead of focusing on that, it speaks from the perspective of the nature of things. Okay? So throughout the sutra, all the things that I've listed that we've covered, all of them are the Heart Sutra's critique of phenomenological and materialist understanding of the world. Right? And it denies that, kind of critiques that. For example, the uh, 18 realms, 6 sense faculty, corresponding sixth sense object, right? So eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought. Their contact giving rise to cognitive moments, perceptions, or consciousnesses with regard to these six different spheres. All of these are material. This is what I mean by materialist, kind of concrete experience. And the Heart Sutra critiques that from the perspective of the nature of things. Same thing with the Four Noble Truths. The way we experience the world, the way most people experience the world, is a materialist understanding. The world is out there, and I'm experiencing it. Right? So, suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path. Buddhism has many different ways of understanding suffering. It's kind of expert in suffering. There's different divisions. Twofold suffering, threefold suffering, fourfold suffering, the eightfold suffering. You know, twofold would be like internal suffering and external suffering. Threefold suffering is suffering of suffering, suffering of change, suffering of destruction. Suffering is like old age, sickness, and death. You know, physicality of bodily pain, right? Suffering of suffering, like actual pain and suffering. Suffering of change is nothing is graspable. Everything changes. You know, nothing can be held on to. Suffering of destruction refers to separation. Right? Things we love will eventually leave and become extinct. I know it sounds very gloomy, but let me just finish it to talk about nature, right? So with fourfold suffering, so that's the threefold. Fourfold suffering is the basic analysis of birth, old age, sickness, and death. All of these are phenomenological, observable things. Right? Then there's the eightfold suffering. The fourfold suffering, eightfold suffering are mentioned in the Buddhist discourse on the Four Noble Truths. So it's kind of core. Birth, old age, sickness, and death. Right? And the cycle begins again in samsara. Eightfold suffering refers to that, those four, plus four more. Separation from those we love, meeting those we don't like, you know, suffering from that which we cannot obtain, like kind of longing, yearning for something that's just unobtainable. And suffering of the five skandhas. Five skandhas we covered. Form, sensation, perception, volition, consciousness. Also materialist. Form, the body. Sensation, the raw experiencing of pleasure, unpleasant, and neutral. Right? Perception, the ways in which we categorize, compartmentalize experiences into containers. We put labels into them. Right? Volition, action taken on the basis of the way we label things, the way we understand things. If we label something as trauma, and that shapes our experience of this phenomena and our reaction against it, responding to it. That's volition. But as we all know, that trauma for one person may not be trauma for another person. You know? Can you think of an example? Siblings grow up in the same parent, different views of the parent. That's true. It's a lot, you know. I was just talking with the student earlier today about this generation. This generation is a generation of trauma, kind of. Everything's traumatic. Because there are labels and words, they frame things. They put things in containers. Right? And because of their perception, they experience what they perceive. So it's intimately connected with suffering. Suffering is perceptual. Right? So a person, for example, I know a lot of friends, blacks, they talk about the way they're raised, right? Their mothers. The way I was raised, in Asia, right? You get a bad grade. It's public schools, you get bad grades, C and below. So line up, hands, and here comes the bamboo sticks from the teachers. Do you know that? Now we label it trauma, but back then, that's the norm. It's norm. Like there's no, I'm okay, I think, right? I grew up okay, right? Different periods have different values which shape our perception, which shape our experience, which traumatizes or not traumatizes someone. Right? The notion of violence, it's the same. Now, if we say something that's politically incorrect, the person may perceive as we doing violence to them. Right? So the point here is perception leads to volition, right, of the five skandhas. And it deposits particular imprint on mental continuum, consciousness. So form, sensation, perception, the way we perceive, volition, the way we act on that, leave an imprint on consciousness. So you can already see in this materialist analysis what is important. This heap of flesh in the history of humanity has always been basically the same. 2 eyes, 1 nose, mouth, arms, legs. In 200 BCE to 200 CE to 2000 CE. Basically the same. But the level of suffering changes because the perception is different. Why is perception different? Because the values are different. So what is crucial is critically examine the values and the ways in which we perceive things. Does that make sense? Right? Anyway, all of these phenomenological analysis, the Heart Sutra basically denies because they're conditioned by what? Values, the period of time, the people that construct them, the people that institutionalize them, right? So it becomes the norm. Right? How? For example, pop culture institutionalize what is beauty, what is ugly, and we contribute to that. It's constructed, it's institutionalized by the ways in which we see everything in pop culture, what is valued. So the brain learns this, associates with this, and internalizes it. Right? Pale, plump, in other civilizations, older civilization means good. It's the height of beauty. Why? That means they have enough food to eat, first of all. Pale, they don't have to work in the fields. Very good. So that's what you choose, right? Skinny, tanned, bad. Right? Always work in the field. Hard life or something, So it's institutionalized by a particular society, leading to a consensus of values. And people are products of that. They're also producers of that. So we're both producers and products of our values. And we completely internalize them. So the Heart Sutra basically dismantles every one of basically early Buddhist analysis, phenomenological analysis of suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering in the path. That's today's topic. Right? Of all these different types of suffering, there's one thing in common, and that is the ways in which they are named. We have to learn that first. And we have to learn to recognize that before we can dismantle it. So, for example, the suffering from separation from those that we love. Early Buddhism recognized that as a suffering. We experience it as suffering. That's at the phenomenological level. We actually experience it. But not all separations from those we love is necessarily suffering. Sometimes we separate because we love. For example, parents with kids. You want to keep them around all the time after college? We want them to go away. We want them to go to college. We want them to study. We want them to be independent. We want to separate. Right? See, so it's not necessarily so. But when we name it as such, it begins to shape our experience as such. So from naming, we learn to recognize. Learning to recognize, we find ways to remedy it or to work with it, and then to be free from it. Now, when we look at suffering as a cause of separation, a slightly deeper understanding of, well, why is separation suffering? What's the difference between letting those you love leave you so they can actually benefit? Go to college, get better education, get life experience, versus separation as suffering. Self-referentiality. We experience suffering because we don't want it to be that way. We want it to go our way. Right? If it's other-centered, well, actually, it will be good for that person to leave. And the separation is, you may miss the person. Nowadays, you can connect through Zoom. If you live far away, you can fly. Take an airplane. You can always connect. I remember when I was growing up, when telephones are really not cell phones, like the telephone you open dial. AT&T had this advertisement, something like, what is it? Those of you who are like, call, like when you love them or something, it's a phone call away or something like that. Commercials, pick up. Some of them it's like this dial, this kind of dialing. It's always ways to connect. And so, one is self-referential, another one is for the benefit of the other person. That's the juncture between suffering, love, not suffering. It's a matter of perception. Also, for suffering to exist, it needs to be named as suffering. So, once we name things a particular way, it will frame our experience that way. Whether we name it one way or another, the Heart Sutra's critique is, it doesn't really exist. For suffering to exist, it needs to be independently existing. It needs to actually exist. Without you naming it. Without you experiencing it. If things are, and not only independently exist, it needs to exist. It needs to have a permanence to it. It needs to exist in its own, on its own side. Right? So, like cup, for example, cup. In order for this cup to exist, you may think I'm crazy. Of course, I'm holding something here, right? But in order for this cup to exist, it needs to be permanent. It needs to exist on its own side. It needs to be independently existing. So, but this cup is actually made up of a lot of other things. And it continues to change. It may last longer than, say, ceramic cup, because this is metal, right? Aluminum. It may last longer, but eventually it will still change. So to reify it, solidify it, to make it into a thing called cup, gives the illusion of stability, permanence. Right? Manageability. But its true nature is that cup is made up of non-cup. Cup continue to change. Now, something like a cup may be easy to understand. But the suffering that we feel, a little bit more abstract. Right? This deeply ingrained way in which we label things, we perceive things linguistically. Right? We're linguistic beings. Without language, we would not have knowledge. We would not be able to perceive things. Right? So it's learned. So this deeply ingrained way of experiencing the world through the filter of words and language gives the illusion of permanence, of independently existing things, like my suffering. My suffering. I just reified it, solidified it into a thing. Out of nothing, I just made it into a thing. Because I could experience this, whatever I'm feeling, as new beginnings. As change. As possibilities. For example, someone leaves me, I'm very sad, hypothetically. I'm very sad. If we stay at that level, crude, level of phenomenal materialist understanding. They leave me. Then there's a lot of suffering. But if we look deeply into that, the notion of leaving, coming and leaving, it's a very abstract idea. Those people who have left us, do they actually leave? Now, if we focus on the idea of leaving, they have left. Next thing, maybe you think, I'm all alone now. Alone. Is anyone ever alone? If you think in materialist ways, I lock myself in a room, I'm alone, right? But if you think about all the stuff in your head, all the experience that you have, all that you've experienced, have they left you? People that leave us, do they actually leave us? On the physicality level, we may not be able to touch them. But what is touching? Has your brain ever touched anything? It's just synaptic firing, neurological synaptic firing. Your brain has not actually left your skull ever. So the notion of touch, what is touching? If we label things as, I've been left behind, someone left me, it's creating out of something very abstract that doesn't actually correspond to how things actually are. And we isolate it, reify it into a me and a them. Based on materialist understanding. So from the perspective of the nature of things, impermanence and interconnectedness. Impermanence means temporal. Interconnectedness means spatial. From a temporal and spatial perspective, there is no coming. There is no leaving. The nature of things. For something to come, it would have to be a thing, independently existing. It wouldn't even be able to move. If something truly exists, it wouldn't be able to move. It wouldn't be able to change if something actually exists. Does that make sense? If you actually exist, like Julia actually exists at the age 2, actually exist, she would stay age 2. She wouldn't be able to change. The fact that she's able to change means that Judy is actually not there. For something to be existing, self-existing, there's a permanence. Where is Julia? Julia is made up of non-Julia. Julia is made up of change. Julia is made up of possibilities, moment to moment to moment to moment. For someone to leave, there will have to be something permanent that's able to move. It doesn't make sense at all. If it moves, that means it can't be a thing. It can't be a fixed thing. So it could simply be possibilities. It could be a new beginning. Someone leaves, it's a new beginning. You're liberated. You're free. You see how a new way of, or another way of naming things, the experience is completely different. The person left me, or I'm free. Does that make sense? We have to first understand Buddha Dharma provides different ways of framing things. We have to understand them. 2 types of suffering, 3 types, 4 types, 8 types. Understand them, and then recognize them in our life, and then use the teachings of impermanence and interconnectedness, it's called causes and conditions, to begin to dismantle them, to free ourselves from the bondage. The ordinary world their method, they provide a lot of framing, new labels, new pronouns, new ideas. They provide a lot of different ways to see things. But their way of dismantling them, it's not a kind of liberation or freedom. Their way of dismantling them is to oppose them and destroy it, while keeping the containers. Right? Us versus them. Mine versus theirs. So I have to expand what is mine, take theirs to become mine. So I'm keeping the container, it's just that you have less now. I'm going to take more of it. It doesn't actually question the containers themselves. It doesn't actually dismantle the containers themselves, the labels and words, the processes in which we discriminate and reify things. That tendency is unchallenged. So it goes around in circles. As long as there's me and you, us versus them, as long as there's gaining, losing, having, possessing, lacking, suffering will continue. So, the Heart Sutra critiques this early Buddhist analysis, materialist phenomenological analysis, from the perspective of the nature of things. No coming, no going. No gaining, no losing. No having, lacking. No attainment. Not lost. Suffering. No suffering. It's not blind denial. It's looking at the nature of things instead of the phenomenological understanding. It challenges the ways we create containers to contain phenomena, to manage it, to give the illusion of controllability. In naming things, we bring things into being. The more names we have, we bring more things into being. But it doesn't question the naming itself, the labels themselves. We just end up with more labels, more names, more containers, more ways in which we become tethered, locked in. You see? So that becomes a kind of predicament that's hard to come out. The only way to come out is to understand the nature of labels, the nature of words and language, the nature of perception. If we are able to change our perception of things, then there's the possibility to come out of that, to be free. To understand that no labels can define us, our true nature. Right? Are you defined by the material things, what you have and have not? Is that what defines you? Do we want to be defined that way? Do we want to be defined by words and language? Right? Good, bad, tall, short, fat, thin, ugly, beautiful. Is that what you are? That's it? Just that? There's so much more potential in you. There's so much freedom. Nothing contains you. Infinite possibilities. That's a critique from the nature. So, change, impermanence, from the Prajnaparamita perspective, doesn't really exist. It's just a word. It could easily be possibilities, new beginnings, infinite potential. You see? So the Heart Sutra targets the ways in which we try to contain things using the illusion of words, giving rise to the illusion of manageability and thingness. There is no thing. For a thing to exist, it has to actually exist, unchanging, independent. And there's nothing like that in the world. Everything's made up of everything else. Everything's interdependent. Everything continue to change and have new beginnings, new possibilities. So the point of tonight is, if I were to summarize, we have to understand the materialist, phenomenological ways of understanding the world. How? Words and labels. We have to recognize how words function and the different ways we can compartmentalize experiences. Right? It's useful to name something, to bring it into light, then we can deal with it. Right? So injustice, social injustice, criminality, corruption, I'm going to name it. But we should also see its nature. If we don't see the nature, we don't see possibilities. We just see, we just live at the level of words and language and containers and materialist paradigm. Right? So if we name someone bad, we name someone bad, right? Criminal. Right? Then that criminal will have no chance because that's bad. We have to see the goodness in that because the true nature is neither bad nor good, right? If you treat someone because that person is bad, you just kill the potential of that person. Right? To you may be bad, to someone else may be good. See? Bring it into light with words and language. Put a label on it. And then learn to work with it. Learn to allow this experience to change from bad to good, from bondage to liberation, from suffering in samsara to nirvana, the Four Noble Truths. Right? Four Noble Truths, it's basically naming the cause and effect of the world, that's suffering and its cause, and then naming the processes of freedom, cessation and the path. So these two sets of cause and effect. You're going to name it. You're going to bring it to light, something not so good, bad, samsara, bad, and then you change it to good. The Heart Sutra. So we're going to first learn how to do that in our life, the different stuff that we experience. Put a label on it, put a name on it, so you can learn to work with it. Because when we put a label on something, it shows how we feel. It exposes our internal state. So you know how you feel. Once you know how you feel, then you can begin to free yourself from the negativity when you name someone bad. Right? It's about you. Because someone else will name that as good. So the labeling exposes how we feel. How we feel is how we're conditioned. It exposes our bondage, our restrictions. Naming it exposes this. And then it's about this relationship of freeing. Because if you feel bad, you can't name that person as good. If you're not kind and compassionate, all you see is bad. Does that make sense? So it's about you. First, learn from Buddha Dharma all the ways to put container and label things, right? And recognize that it's about your perception, right? Once you expose your perception, you begin to develop a newer relationship. Because when you change, the way you label things also change. You allow more movement, porous, the way you feel, not so rigid. And you can see possibilities. You can see new beginnings. When we're really suffering, we don't see possibilities. We don't see new beginnings. All we see is just suffering. Right? So, learning the containers and then exposing what's here, accepting the ways in which we have been conditioned a particular way to see this thing, this phenomena, and then using our practice, Buddha Dharma, our attachment, loosening our attachment to our perception, to become more porous, to allow more movement, right, to transform. And then we, in that process of working with that person, we also allow that person new possibilities. Suffering changes to liberation. The cause of suffering changes to the path of liberation. Two sets of cause and effect. Suffering, the cause. Liberation and the cause, the path. See, they overlap. They're the same thing, just changed. Does that make sense? You know? The Four Noble Truths. For that reason, because this changeability of the Four Noble Truths and the instability of these labels, suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, therefore they don't exist. There is no suffering. There's no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. Path is made up of non-path. Suffering is made up of non-suffering. Relationship continue to change. Someone leaving us is a new beginning. That's how we use Buddha Dharma. It requires us to examine into the ways in which we label things. We had to put a label, and working with our difficulties, constraints, and seeing new possibilities. So that's the Four Noble Truths. Next time, we'll talk about there's no wisdom, only any attainment. This refers to like awakening. There's no awakening. What? No attainment? And then he says, with nothing to attain, therefore, Bodhisattva realized full awakening. Right? So, identifies the words and language, the ways we experience the world, the labels, and then it dismantles it. Therefore, true attainment. So, any questions? Yes, Danny? Yeah.
So I'm wondering how what we've been talking about, how that relates to maybe more extreme cases of physical suffering where, again, to bring up sort of an extreme, if you're experiencing torture, for example, where it's just that kind of that raw physical pain, where at least to me it seems like it's not so much the words and language, it's just that raw physical pain that is, I guess causing the suffering. How would what we've been talking about relate to those instances?
Thank you for asking. So our nervous system, our nerve endings, are designed to function in a particular way. If you take a knife and you stab your hand, you're gonna feel pain, right? That's just how the physicality of our nervous system work. Just like the eyes see, the ears hear, the body experiences. Right? So there's no denying that. But there not need to be suffering. There's pain, but it doesn't need to be suffering. You seem unsatisfied with this question.
I guess my question would be how, and I understand that's what we've been talking about, but yeah, like how do we, like what you've been talking about, how do we, maybe put a label on it and then kind of disentangle that?
All right, let's do something concrete, like maybe not torture, right? Maybe meditation and you have leg pain. And some of them can be excruciating, right? If you sit there for 3 hours, excruciating, right? Have you ever sat with pain? Physical pain, your legs. It's like, it's so painful. And then you just decide to just experience it. See where it takes you. And then the suffering is reduced. And also, have you experienced not so much pain? There's a little ache here and there, but because the mind is very agitated, you feel like your whole body's burning up. Little tiny discomfort. Have you experienced both? Yeah. So, where's suffering in those two instances? Right.
It's through my perception of that physical pain.
Yeah, it has an emotional tone to it. There's a feeling tone to it. So that's what we're talking about. So that's very concrete. If someone were to force you to put your leg in a pretzel shape, like all of you are doing now, you have great suffering. But if you voluntarily come on a 7-day retreat and you put your leg in I don't know, the suffering is different. Maybe there's no suffering. And if you concentrate the mind until you stay with the breath or some other method, so concentrated, the body disappears in the midst of pain. So you just concentrate, relax into it. Where is suffering? Now we can talk about torture. Right? For someone who's not completely tethered to the physicality of nervous system, right? But it's grounded in the nature of experiencing, which is freedom. Do they experience pain? Like the nervous system will have sensations, but it may not be suffering. Even martyrs can do that, let alone spiritual practitioners. Like martyrs, they would do it. They have done it. For a particular cause. For an idea, they can suffer. They feel pain. They may feel pain, but they're not suffering. Let alone Dharma practitioners. You see? The physicality of our senses, they function normally as they do. But you're not defined by that. If we allow ourselves to be defined by only the sensual experiences, we're in trouble. Because sickness, old age, and the slow deterioration of everything that you define yourself as you, you'll be lost. And then great, great suffering. Great suffering. So, what we allow to define us, what we cannot let go of, that is our obstruction. That's the cause of our suffering. If nothing defines you, it's not like you're oblivious to things. You experience everything. But you know that you're not limited by that. Like people who are suffering, right? One of the ways in which our nervous system is built is that the mechanism of stress is that it amplifies the experience. In other words, exaggerates it. Right? It's not based on reality. It's based on exaggeration. So when a person is having some difficulty, that experience is completely consuming and exaggerated to the extent that they forgot that there's goodness in their life too. There's happiness in every moment. In their childhood, they have had experienced happiness with parents, with friends, and all that is forgotten. It's justice. It's like the elephant becomes the huge part of the room. But in reality, the elephant is just a little creature in the corner. There's all the other stuff in the space that's... You see what I'm saying? So, what is suffering? Right? Perception. Right? Fueled by a mechanism of stress, memory, and the values that we hold. In other words, attachment. If a person's untethered, all they see is, there is an elephant. I'm not saying there's no elephant, there's an elephant, but like sitting meditation, my leg's excruciating, but my shoulder is not painful. I can still relax. Right? But when the stress mechanism is exaggerated, the whole body tenses up. Cortisol is flushing through the body. So then the whole body's burning. So short-circuiting that, relax. Legs, yeah, it's very painful. But my faces, the muscles are pretty relaxed. My shoulders are pretty relaxed too. Not exaggerated. Because the perception is different. Right? The perception is, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing suffering. No, you're not experiencing suffering. It's just one ankle, actually. One knee that's having pain. So the threshold of pain or suffering is reduced. Does that make sense? The way you're talking about torture, physicality torture, can be extended to everything. Can be extended to what I spoke about, someone leaving us. That's torturous. Emotional torture could be just as painful or even more. How to see through that? The key is perception. Right? New beginnings. Freshness. Possibilities. One time I was experimenting when I was in the monastery. Very painful. It's just, my whole legs feels like it's actually heat. Feels like burning up the ankles. I just got to a point which I said, bring it on. Let's see what's going to fall off. Fine. At least I'll die using the method. I'm not dying because of some other giving rise to vexations. I don't want to do that. I'll just die here while practicing. So at the extremity of pain, it's actually coolness. After 6 hours, not moving. After you reach that summit of pain, coolness, my advice is don't move. Because if you move the pain will come back. And the pain actually comes in waves. Waves, extreme pain, after a while it doesn't have pain. And it correlates with concentration. You can experiment it. It correlates with perception. You just watch. Bring it on. What are you going to do? Paralyze? Fine. Actually, it's not going to be paralyzed. A day, it's not going to be paralyzed. So that kind of you experience. Totally doable. Every one of you. If you wanted to. You believe it? Yeah. You believe it now. 2 hours into it, see if you believe it. Just like what? Well, bring it on. What? That's it. That's what the Buddha did. At the threshold of his awakening, he said, you know what? I think we've been around for 6 years trying to find a solution to suffering, cause of suffering. I'll just expire. I won't get up. Find a fig tree, sat underneath. I'm not going to get up until I reach awakening. That's it. If I die, so be it. That kind of complete embrace, complete acceptance, not fighting with pain, that causes more pain. Just complete. That's it. And he sat. Not even 24 hours, reach awakening. All night. At that threshold, the mind is completely open, receptive. No words, labels, containers, no perceptual ideas about this and that. In that open spaciousness, you just happen to look up. Shooting star, complete awakening. Right? So that tells us that all the labels and containers, the ways in which we describe things, discriminate things, all that must die off. In other words, all the ways in which we phenomenologically, materially label things, you gotta go beyond the material. Nothing defines you. Nothing contains you. What is it that's beyond just words and labels? Are you just words and labels? What is it that's beyond that? What is this freedom? You must experience it yourself. Okay. Any other questions? No? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. This is very rich. Thank you. I wonder if you could say a bit about contentment as it relates to this notion of labeling things in order to make action in relation to them possible. I'm thinking specifically about experiencing debilitation, and my early interpretation of contentment is the absence of preference. So I would say I have no particular preference or attachment to this or that, pain or ease. But at the same time, I feel inclined to understand the phenomenon in order to be able to address it.
Yeah. Contentment is not no preferences.
Say again, please.
Contentment is not having no preferences. No preferences, it's like a thing that some people use to suppress how they feel. Because people do feel something, right? So it's an idea, right? That's not non-attachment, right? So you have to acknowledge how we actually feel. Hence, like I said, you gotta label it. You gotta bring to light, and then you gotta examine into it using practice. So contentment is freedom. Freedom doesn't mean no choices. Doesn't mean no action. It means possibilities. See? You could take route A or route B. Both are possible. But it's not self-referential anymore. There's choice. There's action. Right? So, are you referring to physical debilitation?
Yes, initially, yes.
Initially. Okay, so could be other things that we can do, because the body as it is will just go through different phases. You know? That's very natural, very ordinary. Am I defined by my body? That's the first question you should ask. Am I defined by limitations? Am I just that? What are new possibilities? Right? There are people that are born disabled. Stephen Hawking, right? Brilliant mind. He's not defined by the body. So we are not defined by the body. So our contentment comes from recognizing this freedom, choices, possibilities. Right? If we think about me, I, mine, then freedom is limited to that. If you think of what I could do for the benefit of others, then it becomes wider. How am I going to make use of my time? For myself? Or to benefit more people, which could be more meaningful? With my mind. With my mind. With my skills, my knowledge. All kinds of possibilities. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's still challenging.
Yeah. So you have to look at what is challenging. The places in which we're holding on. That. Examine into that. Because that is the way to freedom. Not some other idea outside. It's just the ways that we are holding on. So look at that, the way to hold on. Does it change? Is there possibilities? Experiencing that. In that moment of holding on. Experience the holding on. What is it? Don't introduce new ideas. In the beginning, yes, you could introduce Buddha Dharma, new ways of dependent origination, impermanence, new possibility, all these way. But ultimately, these are just frames for us to look into that itself, that freedom. What is that? We'll discover this emptiness. Right? There may be a physicality to that. What if you relax the body and just... There may be a feeling tone to that, the grasping, holding on. It's a feeling tone. So is that movable? Is it porous? Does it change? When the feeling tones change, because the body's changed, is there movement? Where is it? Where is it located? Then look for freedom. You see, in the midst of our experience. There's something inexhaustible within you, not defined by all this other stuff. Right? What is that? Okay. Something else? Oh, okay. All right. Hopefully the talk is useful. Think about what you got out of it. Different points. Think about the talk, the materialist understanding, the words and language, naming them. It's important. But in naming them, it reveals how we actually feel inside. Our hang-ups, our preferences when we name it. So it exposes what's here. Once you bring it to light, then you can work with it. Otherwise, it's just in the dark. Right? And then there's introduce movement, introduce possibilities, porous. Right? So from naming, labeling, we expose our feeling tones. From feeling tones, our hang-ups, we look into that using the teachings to free ourselves, to see if there's movement, if there's change. Right? So we move from suffering to cause of suffering to the path, how to practice, to freedom, for noble truth. Then we see that suffering is no suffering. There is no suffering. So in retrospect, what I used to label as suffering is just possibilities. What I used to label as cause of my anguish, yeah, it's just this guy. This guy is the cause of my suffering. Or whatever we used to say. It's actually exposing here. We free this up. Then we see the world in new light. No cause of suffering. Right? Even the path, there's no fixed way. Right? And the freedom, already free. Okay? Have a good night.